Andrew Terry, 36, owned half of Chicago's skyline. He spotted every discrepancy in ledgers, every flaw in blueprints, except the woman who'd raised him. Elizabeth had been there since he was 2. When his mother died, she rocked him through nightmares. When his father crumbled, she held the household together. She loved him fiercely when no one else could. Yet Andrew never asked about her world, her dreams, her pain. She was simply there, quiet, dependable, unseen, until 3 weeks ago. He noticed her leaving the building each night with 2 heavy tote bags she hadn't carried in that morning. Tuesday, Thursday, Monday. Same routine. Suspicion crept in. Theft? He checked safes, drawers, inventory. Nothing gone. Still, those bags haunted him. On a rainy Thursday, he followed her. He parked a block away, waited. When Elizabeth emerged, coat cinched, bags dragging, she moved with weary determination. Andrew's stomach knotted. Tonight, he'd uncover the truth. She boarded a southbound bus, riding deep into districts his firm had revitalized. Neighborhoods rebranded, rents tripled, residents pushed out. She exited at 63rd, slipped down an alley behind a faded church, peeling paint, boarded windows, knocked softly. Light spilled as the door opened. Andrew waited, then crept closer. The basement hummed with quiet life. Weary mothers, hollow-eyed men, children in threadbare jackets, all eating from paper bowls. And there stood Elizabeth, hair loose, old sweater, ladling soup, calling each person by name, smiling with a warmth Andrew had never witnessed. A young veteran approached. "Miss Elizabeth, any cornbread left?" "Made it fresh, Marcus." She handed him 2 foil-wrapped pieces. A small girl tugged her sleeve. "Where's all this food come from?" Elizabeth knelt. "From love, baby, so you can grow strong." Andrew's breath caught. Those bags weren't stolen goods. They were groceries, bought with her modest salary, cooked in his kitchen, carried here to feed people his developments had displaced. She could have asked him for help, but she hadn't, because after 34 years, she'd decided he wasn't the kind of man who'd understand mercy. He retreated into the rain, sat in his car 2 hours until she emerged, bags empty, steps slow. He rolled down the window. "Elizabeth." She turned. No shock, only quiet sorrow. "Get in." They drove in silence. Finally his voice cracked. "How long?" 17 years, she said, staring out the window. "Since Grace died." He'd sent flowers to that funeral, never asked why. "Why didn't you tell me?" She met his eyes. "What would you have done? Turned it into a tax write-off?" The words stung clean. He drove her to a modest South Side home. Inside, a framed bronze star gleamed on the wall. Sergeant Elizabeth M. Hart, for saving 17 lives in Desert Storm. The woman who brewed his morning coffee was a decorated hero, and he'd never known. Andrew didn't go home that night. He sat in his car until dawn, rain easing, city waking. His penthouse greeted him with automatic lights, silent luxury, but it felt hollow, marble pretending to be warmth. In the kitchen, Elizabeth set out breakfast as always. Coffee, toast, fruit sliced perfectly. "Good morning, Mr. Terry." "Elizabeth," his voice faltered. She paused. "Are you all right, sir?" He wanted to apologize, to beg forgiveness, but words failed. "Thank you," he managed. "For everything." She nodded, left the room. Andrew realized with horror, after 34 years of raising him, she still called him sir, still moved carefully as if he were master, not family. He'd built that distance himself. That afternoon, he cleared his calendar, drove back to the church. In daylight, the basement was empty. Stacked tables, lingering soup scent. Marcus appeared. "You again?" Andrew nodded, trying to understand. Marcus studied him. "You're the developer, the one who owns these blocks." "I am." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Miss Elizabeth found me on the street 3 years ago, brought me food, sat with me through the nightmares, got me help, saved my life." Andrew's throat closed. "She never mentioned the medal," Marcus said. "Bronze Star, saved 17 soldiers. She doesn't talk about herself." Marcus nodded. "She comes Thursdays, 7 p.m. If you really want to understand, show up, stay, listen." Thursday, Andrew arrived early. Elizabeth looked up, unsurprised. "I'd like to help." She handed him bowls. "Soup needs serving." He served. Awkward at first. Rich man in expensive coat ladling soup for people his firm had displaced. But faces softened. "Thank you," an elderly woman whispered. Halfway through, Elizabeth swayed, gripped the counter. Andrew dropped the ladle. "When did you last eat?" "I'm fine." He filled a bowl, brought it to her. "Sit, eat." She obeyed, exhausted. Later, driving her home. "Doctor?" 3 years, maybe 4. "Why?" "Doctors cost money. Others needed it more." Andrew's hands tightened on the wheel. Next morning, he upgraded her insurance. Full coverage, no limits. Scheduled a complete physical. When she arrived for work, he told her. She froze. "Why now?" "Because I finally see you." Her eyes hardened. 34 years invisible. "Now you see?" The words cut deep. She went to the appointment, collapsed mid-exam. Andrew rushed to the hospital. Advanced diabetes, kidney damage beginning, severe anemia. All treatable if caught years earlier. She chose others over herself, the doctor said. Andrew sat by her bedside, holding her hand as she slept. When she woke, "Your middle name is Marie." Tears filled her eyes. Born 1955, Birmingham. Army at 19. Grace died at 28. Couldn't afford insulin. Elizabeth turned away. "I gave you bare minimum insurance, paid you fairly, never asked if it was enough." She squeezed his hand. "I forgave you long ago. Anger would have poisoned me, but forgiveness doesn't mean things stay the same." "No," she whispered. "It means you get a chance to do better." Andrew cleared 2 weeks, read every displacement file, thousands of families, real names, real losses. Called emergency board meeting. "I'm changing how we build. Mixed income, community ownership, hiring local, profit sharing with residents." Margins dropped 40%. Some walked out. Enough stayed. Southside Commons rose differently. Homes people could afford, gardens, training centers, ownership shares for former tenants. Opening day, no champagne, just a block party. Music, laughter, children dancing in streets reborn. Andrew stood watching families move into homes they partly owned. Elizabeth beside him. Welcome home. He finally understood. Home wasn't the penthouse overlooking the city. Home was here, where people knew your name, where your presence mattered not for wealth, but for who you'd become. Andrew Terry had spent 36 years building monuments to himself. Now he built belonging, and in the faces of people once invisible, he saw grace and finally felt seen himself.